So, Angela, I often go on about, for me, there's three pillars that I often go on about, which is healthcare. There's the inner resources of what we want to create or maintain or change and get into flow with as a healthcare inner healthcare system. And then wealth care is the all the external resources and power and so that sense of what is true wealth rather than it being about the bank account and the finances and um, that is almost like the symptom of wealth care. Like if we have symptoms of health conditions because of the result of what we're doing and not doing in our lives. It's also about this wealth care piece, about what we're actually doing or not doing in our lives to do with the external resources. And that could be, well, let's say faces, so people, spaces, environment, and places as well, spaces and places. So I'm wondering what you get from that.
I think it's a really interesting point, and what strikes me straight away is this kind of talk about the symptoms of, because like you've just said, when we talk about healthcare, we think of, oh, have I got aches and pains? Is my back hurting? Have I got a neck pain? And you then two things happen. You either your body responds to try and protect itself in the wrong way, because actually often that causes more damage. And but we get into the trap of it. And so you'll see people, won't you, who start to become stooped when they're walking, or they're lopsided, or they're just stiff when they hold themselves. And that's because they haven't actually tackled the cause. They're just trying to deal with the symptoms, or they're taking lots of painkillers, for example, but they're never getting right back into the problem. And when you started talking about wealth care, it struck me that a very similar thing applies. So you've got a huge debt. So instead of looking, well, what caused the debt? And I'm going to be very, very honest here. ADHD for me has meant I act in the moment. I don't necessarily think long term. And so there have been times when I've just, done something and I got involved in something without really thinking and got drawn into it. And that's had an impact on our finances. So instead of what we could do is just take out a loan and then repay that money. That's dealing with the symptom. If I don't go and look at what's causing the problem, then the symptom is going to keep happening. And so it's just going to be an ever-growing cycle. And you've mentioned a few other things around that wealth care side of it as not being just monetary, but to do with the rest of our life. For example, do we spend time with people who massage our ego, but don't actually bring us forward and help us to grow in our businesses or in our relationships? Do we just spend time with people who are yes people? They're there, Angela. It's okay. It's okay. When it isn't okay, actually, I need to do something about it. So I think it's a really valuable opportunity to have a look at our lives in every aspect.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. That's really important reflections. Uh, the two things come up for me there are one is like re-evaluation of worth. And so the first, it again, this kind of comes from the inner resources to feel healthy is to then they often say health is the true wealth. Because if we're not feeling very healthy, wealthy, then how can we expect other people to want to absorb, give or take from that space in some way, shape, or form. And there's that idea around it's not about faking it till you make it. It's about actually just not naming it to blame it, and also to as a sense of um, it's not about looking at the symptom and going and emotionally charging it with whatever story is, anything's happened up until now, we've become a master of whatever we've done up until right now. And so that's all, everything up until right now is a memory. So we can just break that. I've learned to break that pattern and really focus on the value that I'm bringing and to remember that, and as soon as I've started doing that, I've known I've actually had to, it's like almost like chanting certain things, not just to say affirmations and hope and feel still in lack because it doesn't feel real because it's different, but to actually be imagining that's what would have happened if I hadn't have got the story from the past in the first place. Like if I, you tell a 2-year-old, um, you know, that it that they're unworthy, that they're not gonna know what that even means. They're not going to care at all unless it's drummed into them, or for some reason and that's what kind of happens when we're ch children, is we absorb the stories of around us because we have no filter to stop that process happening. But before that, there's just endless curiosity, endless creativity, endless worthiness of the situation. There's the true wealth care as long as it's not being or feeling starved in some way, shape, or form from external sources. We're not born into that process. We're just into like being given what we need or fed or or not. But it's that piece around we don't know the difference until we know the difference. So up until right now, we can let go of that difference and just go, what can I bring to this situation and what is true value in the first place? So I often say those things to myself that, value, I'm capable, valuable, worthy, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's important. One of the things that, and it just touched me again then, really, looking back to my school days, I know that I didn't feel valued, certainly not at high school. Bullying really knocked it out of me. I know I lost who I was. I'd known it in primary school. I'd been a very confident little girl, um, happy to be on, in the plays or whatever it was that we were doing, and just getting on with my work and talking and so on. And then I went to high school and I was completely lost in this world of girls who I didn't know anybody. And I they looked down on me and I took hold of their beliefs about me and they became part of me. And yet there was a little voice inside of me that was like kind of confused because I knew that it wasn't fair. What they were doing, what they were saying wasn't right, but I didn't know what to do about it. And I do think that for many of us, those early years in our life, it's well known, those first 7 years, give me a child for the first 7 years and I'll make the man. There's a bit of a falsehood in that because actually the next 7 years are equally as important. And as you go into your teenage years, for many of us, things happen and we get shaped by those things. We get shaped by the world around us. And it's very evident to me when I watch Benjamin, our youngest, who never went to school, and his whole journey through the teenage years was one of exploring himself, finding his own place, finding who he was, so that by the time he sort of entered the world of high school, sixth form, he didn't really need to fit in. He could just fit in with whoever he wanted to fit in with. He didn't actually have to change. Whereas we do our children a disservice because we place them from a tiny age in this world and expect them to fit in. And in order to fit in, they have to become somebody that perhaps they're not. And it doesn't affect everybody, but it affects a lot of people. And I can guarantee that, you know, it, if you're listening, you'll know, even if it's not you, you'll know people who've been like that. And it just makes me realize that as we start to look at our healthcare, our wealth care, and all of those external things and internal things, we need to ask ourselves, at what stage in our life have we truly grasped who we are? What are we here for? What are we called to do? Who can we serve? And to really accept 100% ourselves and start loving ourselves from the inside out. Because life changed for me completely when I started doing that. Utterly. You 180 degree, right the way around. Suddenly, I could achieve things I was capable of because I realized that it didn't matter what people thought of me. It literally does not matter what somebody else thinks. That's their problem. That's their problem. Um, I just so it's a whole area, isn't it, of exploration for people. You just like why for example, if you're going down a road and you keep tripping up and and then what do? Well, you actually say, do I need to pick my feet up more? Are my shoes broken? Have I not tied my shoelaces? What is it? Why am I keep tripping up? So you'll put something right, you'll stop, you buy a new pair of shoes or whatever it is. But when we're in life and in business, if we're not getting the success that we deserve, that we long for, that we hope for, why? We need to look at the causes, not the symptoms. It's not about buying a new course or joining a new program or, doing another thing. And I've been there. It's about recognizing our value and truthfully what difference we can make in the world. Because if we're speaking into the difference we can make, then there'll be people who are listening who need to hear that message. And, you know, I don't even know, I've gone off on a tangent here, but that's what's kind of reflected in me as you were talking. It's that, let's stop, just stop a moment and ask yourself, are you dealing with the symptoms or the cause? And unless you deal with the cause, nothing will change.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Angela. Um, there was it just reminded me as you're talking, just reminding me of a moment when I first met you online and you were sharing and I was just in awe of because there was a point where I didn't believe I knew how to communicate. Well, not just a point, it was like all the way up and from my till about 4 years ago, I hadn't really accessed that part of my voice to know that I'm the creator of that. To deal with the symptoms was to look at the cause. I knew it from an ideological point of view and was working with my body and the healthcare piece, but not the wealth care piece, and this what I call the stealth care piece. The third piece around that is the targeting, the type of health that I want, the type of wealth that I want to be in a more here's the topic that I'm aiming for, and here's the specifics to go with it too. The target, the who do I talk to, who do I not talk to, what expert advice do I get, what not expert advice do I get to make that happen. But coming back from that neuro spicy tangent or whatever you want to call it, is that when I first saw you talking online, it was like I was in conversation with you, or I got what you were talking about because you were talking directly to me, and that sense of communication that you bring when you speak from the heart, it brings me there, right there, like I'm in a conversation, and it's like I was like, wow, how do you do that? And so that's what drew me to, even learn more about what you do and talking from the heart, speaking to people in ways in which has them think that yes, I'm reassessing what I want to do, and I know that I'm a heart-centered founder, entrepreneur. I want to be with people and be in community, all that kind of stuff, and just being in that sense of enrollment of the idea is
Mm.
a key piece, and that's why I so respect when you share things that it really it resonates with me, and I go yes, and I think that's a key skill to learn to grow from and with as well is that sense of um communication from the heart.
I think if you can, if you can understand where your heart is and what makes it work, and we're looking at the event that we'll be running in a month's time, what is it that drives you? And usually what drives you is also what feeds you. That's the truth of it. Um, when you think about animals, you've got to feed them the right food to give them the energy to be able to go. So if you want a horse to take you on a long journey, you've got to keep it healthy. You've got to feed it with the right food. You give it the wrong food, it's not going to get you there. If you don't give it enough water, it's not going to get you there. It's going to stop. We are exactly the same. If we don't feed ourselves with what our heart needs, it's not just about our bodies, it's about our heart as well. If we don't give our heart what it needs to beat faster and stronger and harder, then we'll run out of energy. Literally, we'll just have to stop. And then, again, people will find that they've just given up because we're not feeding our heart. So the thing that serves us, that makes us feel good, that makes us want to get up in the morning, that makes us feel proud of what we do, that's the thing that we should be serving other people with. And unless we're serving them with that, unless we're actually looking to fill ourselves up, we'll fail. It's as simple as that, we'll fail. And it's really interesting, I think, because some people will listen to this conversation and the initial reaction will be that's just selfishness. That means you're thinking of yourself before others. And it should be the other way around. No, 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 no. If you constantly think of others before yourself, you will perish. You'll drain out and you'll be flat on the floor. You'll never be able to succeed in what you do. You have to ask yourself, what is it inside of you that makes you grow and makes you, energetic and fills you with passion and hope and excitement? What is it? When you find that, when you know it, and when you go out and deliver it, it changes everything because the person on the other side knows you care. Something goes on in their brain. It's that this person cares about me. Have you been, Rory? Have you been in? I'm sure you have. That moment when you're sitting there and you're thinking, is it just me in the room that they're talking to? How does she know that? How does he know that? How can you possibly realize that that was what I needed to hear? That's what we're all looking for. When we're serving what our heart needs, you'll find that more and more. When you touch that moment, it'd be like a pin could drop and you would hear it because the people in the room are entranced. That is magic. You know, the energy that gives me when that happens is completely transformed. It wouldn't matter if the rest of my life was rubbish at that moment. I'd be so up here, so high, um, and it changes everything. And that's if we can help people find that space, then we will have done a wonderful thing.
Yeah, beautifully said. Amazing. Yeah, thanks, Angela. Um, I can't wait to also be with those people that resonate in that way because it is about genuine connection. What happens when we're connected, is that we don't have that sense of disconnection. What's the sense of disconnection that can sense our brains can reach out and grab hold of the sense of rejection or feeling lonely or separated, and that can be what often happens when on a path of trying too hard to do a business on my own, and uh in the past has been it's tiring, and um yeah, so that I don't know whether anyone who's listening or whether you've heard of this or not before, but this sense of rejection sensitivity dysphoria is a RSD is a known thing, and I was looking into it myself. Once I first heard that, I was like, that makes loads of sense. I mean, it immediately made sense to what was going on for me all my life. It's can be quite linked and being recognized with those with ADHD or some kind of um, neurodivergent diagnosis or conditional suspecting, is this sense of hypersensitivity and going from people say that I'm too empathic, which in itself isn't the I believe a useful way to look at it, because empathy is about wanting and or knowing how to understand someone. But that's that it's the negative and the positive loading of that emotionally that drives the story of whether or not to turn or switch on or off that feeling of being upset if someone is upset in front of them. And that I would call that sympathetic rather than empathic. Empathic is a natural want or drive to understand, not necessarily feel or synthesize the feeling. And so
Mm.
the hypersensitivity part to that is really key piece to why that potentially happens. And obviously in the drained state without doing the health self-care, the wealth care, the healthcare piece for the person every day. For me, I was catching myself off guard, and my brain, even though I'd done so much work on myself up until a few years ago, it was more another sneaky layer to it, another sneaky layer to it. Every single time I'd be like, there is the self-doubt again, and I'm actually as soon as someone has said one thing to me, I'm thinking about it, and I can't
Mhm.
stop thinking about it because my brain wants to know the meaning behind why I'm feeling like that. And it's just the brain switches on, or it needs to work out and feels like it's in conflict. It comes back down to that sense of I'm feeling rejected. Why am I feeling rejected? Because I've learned it. I've learned it from somewhere. And so unless that is looked at, it keeps coming up as well. It's another symptom of something that is basically going to keep pushing the self-worth, the self, well, the wealth care piece away through this. Um, I don't want to put words in or diagnosis in people's mouths, but that's the word the phrase that's come up, rejection sensitivity, because it's highly sensitive to rejection. It's an inappropriate amount of feeling
Yeah.
attached to that. And the reason why I'm going over it in more detail is because it literally was ruling my decisions, my life, my thoughts to the point of mental exhaustion, to the point of mental health condition in my early 20s. Um, and it's because of this fear of why would I feel rejected from life, from the universe, from people? But why would I feel like there's a reason to feel like I'm being hated upon when I know that even though I knew it was made up in my mind, there was all this, it was just, there was so much of it going on. And I think that even if if that that work, the inner work is being done to a certain level, if the wealth care symptoms are around, or the symptoms of not getting the business done, the procrastination, the perfectionisms, the judgment, the self-judgment, the self-doubt, all of that can be coming down to this core piece about how do we deal with the idea of feeling rejected. And and that is possible because I know it's possible to change. I've worked on it. I know how to work on it. This is one of the reasons why I do the inspired decision making framework that I can't wait to express and show and help people feel into when we do the workshop next as well.
Yeah, it's such an important area, and I think that is the point in my life when, and I was about 20, it was before I had children. I was about 25, I think. I can't remember if I was married at the time, but anyway, it was around that time. And I think that time through school that I talked about where I became acutely aware, and I realized it was even showing up in things like if a certain person didn't talk to me, I would start to wonder why. What had I done? What was wrong? You know, it must be my fault that they didn't talk to me, which was ridiculous because I'm talking about people who had, other people to see. You know, in a meeting, why they didn't need to talk to me. There was no point that they needed to make to me. There was no joint action that we were supposed to be taking. But because they hadn't come to talk to me, my brain would be going down this cycle of, well, it must be I've done something wrong, or I'm not important, or all of those things. And or if something happened, it would that was upsetting. I'd be playing it over and over and over. It would be taking hold and taking root because I was trying to work out what, the blame. There must be something about me. And it was at a point where I was at church actually, and I just felt like well, it was just a magical moment of a complete understanding that when I was created, because I believe in I believe in my Father God, and it's that I wasn't an accident, and I realized that deep down in my head, I had seen myself as an accident of time, and I think that many people feel. They'll ask that question at some point, what on earth am I here for? How am I here? Why was I born into this family or had these parents, had these sisters and brothers and so on? It's just a natural human question to ask. And it can deep down begin to be rejection. It can be undervaluing yourself. It can be um, just not being, just not trusting in yourself because you see other people doing things that you can't do or you think you can't do. You forget that there's things that you can do that they can't do. That all completely goes out of your head. You have no, no memory of that. All you remember is the things that they can do. But understanding deep down that we are valuable because of who we are. Doesn't matter what anything else, doesn't matter what we look like, how old we are, how young we are. We are intrinsically valuable. We have a purpose in this world, we have a mission to achieve. If we'll take that call to action, the call to action comes from our heart. Is your heart telling you that there are people out there that you need to serve and you haven't even met them yet? Well, if it is, we have to listen and we have to look inside ourselves. And just like if our shoes aren't working, we have to ask ourselves, what is stopping us from achieving our full potential? The thing that we're called to do. We have to find out what it is and we have to put it right. And part of it is often that lack of self-belief, the self-doubt that tells us it can't possibly be you. Why would you be called to do something? You're nothing. You didn't achieve at school, or you didn't have that good job, or you didn't make a success financially, or there's these little voices. And we just don't say, that doesn't matter about those things. The truth is, each of us is born with a calling on our lives to serve somewhere. And if you're heart led, that becomes a massive noise in your head. And when you're not achieving that fulfillment, when you're not serving the purpose that is there for you, it knocks you flat. It pulls the rug from under your feet and it can leave you stranded and paralyzed and stop you. And it's, going inside ourselves and realizing that even if nobody else in the whole world values us, we have to value ourselves. When you can fall in love with yourself, you can achieve anything. It's not about ego. It's not about thinking you're better than anybody else. It's about saying, I'm glad I am me because I've got something to give that nobody else can give. Nobody else has had your experiences, Rory. Nobody's had my experiences. Nobody can possibly touch the people that I'm supposed to touch because I'm the one that will meet their need. You're the one that will meet those people's need. We different people. Rejection is probably at the heart of most people's failure to achieve what they're called to achieve. That's self-rejection. And in order to be fully move forward in life, you don't need to be accepted by anybody else apart from yourself. It's the only person that needs to accept you. So, I mean, what we've talked about now, we've spent some time now, we've touched on such deep points. I want people who are listening, who are watching, to sit, just stop, rewatch, go back. At, what point in this conversation did something strike you and make you think, that's me, they're talking to me. What Rory just said, that's me. Or what Angela just said, that's me. Sit, sit quietly. Go back to that point, listen to it, talk to us. Don't stay in that hole that you're in because you'll never achieve who you're meant to be if you sit in the hole and hide. Um, we just, and we don't want you to stay there.
Yes, yes, amazing, Angela. Thank you so much. Um, I just feel like the one last thing that one or a section, the final section that comes up for me, this idea of that there's we talked about it before. There's a health condition when we notice this snapshot in time. Right now, I have a health condition that is this condition, and it potentially can even change, but depending on my mood, even if nothing else changes in this second to this second, I can suddenly be reminded of this and have this version of my health condition happen in my mind, or this, or this, or this. The same for the wealth condition, or having a wealth condition. And what does that mean? And again, it's not necessarily right or wrong, negative, positive. They're not linked. It's just where am I at? Where do I want to go? Where have I been before? Um, those are the key pieces, the key questions that we'd love to help people to take that time to ask and sit down and just with all the kindness for themselves to write that out, to explore that. It doesn't take actually that long. There's a moment when we have an idea, we may write it down, we may reflect on it, but that extra time, just that extra 2 minutes to go, oh, I wrote that down. Now let me reflect on that. Oh, now I get this. Oh, I've got one level deeper. One level deeper can take 5 minutes of reflection and get a whole insight that can completely change the whole perspective, the whole thing of, oh, that's where I'm at, but I can now go here. And or I can just take this one simple step to here. And so the piece I'll say is what is that wealth condition or that health condition or that stealth condition? What is and then the other side of the belief system could be, or is it untapped or dysregulated, unconditional health that's not being looked at, or untapped or dysregulated, unconditional wealth that I'm not tapping into, that I'm not regulating, I'm not choosing to do something with, because as in any moment, someone that's an entrepreneur that went through a particular phase in life and went to rock bottom, what changed? Their mindset. Their mindset changed to go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing this instead. And they took action, they took courageous action through the fear, with the fear. It doesn't have to get to that point, but often it does if we're stubborn enough, or we're just on that journey to learn for ourselves, and that's fine too. But just notice that we can grow in solitary decisions well if we're not doing that well enough. And also we can grow in collaborative decision making and learning from experts or learning from each other, learning from other people's mistakes, and growing and sharings. And so those pieces of the puzzle to do the self care well and the collaborative care well is all part of the growing the business. If there's no conversations, how can there be dialogue to create marketing, to create business? And so all of that stuff gets to be practiced. So I said a lot of pieces there, but is it a condition that we're focusing on as a limited thing and is that useful? Because if I don't limit myself, how do I grow? So it's not again bad or good. It's just notice what's limited and what's untapped, unconditional uh, power, resources that I could share. Most people when they start a business, the ones that make money are the ones that just say, "This is what it's worth. Are you up for buying into it before it's even created?" And
Yeah.
that's often a really key piece to it, is to go, we've only just got this workshop idea together. We're just putting it together. Let's have a go at it and see what happens. And that's where the ideas, that's where the courageous action, that's where the sharing of the value happens. That's what health centered business is about. And so last roundup of that, courage is the original word for that, came from the heart, around the Coruscant, uh, and it's the heart-driven choice to take action through fear, but connecting the gut. So it's about the gut courage to fight, flight, rest, or digest in those moments, whether it's to
Yeah.
say something or to do something, using the heart intelligence and the gut intelligence, and getting the head to just agree just for once and get it going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it's really important because if you think about the people who if the people who go that extra mile, and I was just thinking the story of Gladys Aylward came to mind. I don't know why, I don't know if you know that story, but she led in the pre-war. She led all these orphanage, orphans away from the Japanese because they would have been massacred. And they walked across the mountains. It was a really terrible journey. What drove her? What was it that drove her to do that? And it wasn't fear, it was love. It was this heart that beat, dramatically. It was her mission in life. And so, therefore, nothing was going to stand in her way. She was going to do this thing because everything inside of her told her that she had to. And it wouldn't have mattered what people said. Her brain probably told her, this is ridiculous. How can you possibly survive? You'll just all die on the way. You won't have enough water to drink, and so on. But it was her heart that led her. And, you know, if if you are someone who's heart led, you have to realize it's your greatest power. It's the thing that will take you to the next world. Like you talked about your gut there. And if you actually can be aware of your body and what feels in your body, yeah. And what's that phrase you used to talk about, girding your loins in the old days, to gird your loins to go into battle and all of this. And it is a physical, we're physical beings. We have to recognize what's going on inside of us. And it's your heart that beats faster if you're scared, or actually if you're in love. There's lots of things that your body tells you. It's your stomach that goes in butterflies when you're about to do something that um, that you think is a bit scary and so on. And it's recognizing those parts of us that make us whole, that make us human, give us the energy to do any of these things. We're going to work on ourselves. We've got to listen to our heart and our gut. Our brain is there to put into practice the actions that our heart leads us into. So what's our brain there for? Our brain, in my opinion, our brain should be led by our hearts. And there'll be people listening or might have turned off by now and say like, no, 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 it's your brain. If you're going to be a successful business person, you've got to just, use your brain. It's your brain that you've got to use. Well, the brain-led person will see a gap in the market and they'll fill that gap, and it will usually be a non-person centric gap. And it would be money driven often. And they'll be very successful. They'll be billionaires. And if that's what you want, maybe satisfaction they think comes through money, but I guarantee it won't matter how much money they make, there'll be a hole in their lives. And I'm going to just say that's the truth. There will be a hole because money can never, ever fill that gap completely. That's not to say that the heart-led person can't be successful and make money, but the money comes from the passion. The success and fulfillment comes from the service that you've given and the life-changing experience that you have and the joy that's inside of you. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning. Because the heart-led entrepreneur sees a gap in people's lives and seeks to fill that gap. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Amazing. Amazing. Yes. Um, I'm think I yeah, I think I'm just done with everything that we've shared. Um, all I can say is that the what we will bring to this workshop is a full, complete. I've said before at times when you get a workshop and you take ideas and you get to implement them and reflect on them and then build on something and take an action. That's the bit that it's the thought into the emotionally charged into action and then taking it. It happens. Something happens. It's life changing.
Yeah.
In that moment when you get a mastermind. who's done loads of things before, thousands of time. What is a mastermind? It's someone that can do something without thinking or think of something else whilst doing the thing because they've repeated it to the point of thousands of hours with it. And so when you get that kind of person saying, I did this and I do it this way because of this, and you see the principles behind the mastery of it, that's the gold that can be applied to more situations than just a follow this step because of this one thing. So there's
Yeah,
like principles, there is, preferences, there is personal preferences and roots, and it's about resonance to know whether that's the right thing to do. But also when you get two masterminds doing workshop, uh then you get what I call a mega mastermind workshop. So I can't wait to present further with all of this because what I see
yeah,
do, Angela, is the the communication piece from the heart, the drawing and enrolling people without it even being a one-way or two-way conversation, the way to share knowledge that has people say, I want that, and uh, I want that, and I want to be in a community doing it is just so powerful. We are meant to do things well alone, like I said, and well together. And if we don't do
yeah,
things well together, what is the well going to end up being? And so, um, that's what I see your mastermind brings to this so much. And what I would say I bring is the self-care piece, the how to make those decisions to keep the habits up, to keep the motivation up, keep the courage up to take action, no matter what the situation seems to look like, no matter what the head evidence is saying. What are you doing? This is not, there's no evidence to say that you're going to learn something or do something or create something. And so that's what I bring.
yeah. And it's important, isn't it, that we recognize the skills and the gifts of each other. I think that's true in all aspects. And you, I mean, just a conversation I had recently was about collaboration. And I realized that many people fear collaboration. They don't realize what it is. They think that by collaborating, you're going to lose your clients to the other person. That's what they think. That's what they think that you're going to actually only have half the clients because the other person will have the other half. They don't realize that by joining together, you're multiplying what you can give. You're reaching a wider audience because you've both got different skills that those people need. You've you've got the support of each other as well, the recognition of each other's value and of each other's worth and what their gifts, each other's gifts, and you can bring to the world a much deeper message. So that's what true collaboration is. Collaboration is about it's just about reaching more people, changing more lives, supporting and helping each other, and people listening to us. If you've listened to this conversation, there will be times when, I've spoken to you, and other times when Rory's spoken to you. There'll be some people that they click with Rory straight away, they click with me straight away. But by bringing together into a whole, then we're meeting more needs. We're covering more base points, really. And that's so important. It's so important to recognize. It's not about, it's like that picture that I remember having a picture once where, if you got one times one is one. One times one times one is one. One times one times one times one is one. So if you're working on your own all the time, all you're ever going to be is alone because you're multiplying by yourself. You're just going to wear yourself out. But if you add someone else, one plus one is two. One plus one plus one, it's just different. It gives you an energy and a strength that you didn't know you had. Something that the other person says sparks off something in you that you hadn't thought of before. It's so valuable. So if we would love to see you coming to the workshop and accessing the deepest part of you and understanding what's going on in your life What's going on inside of you? What's that? It's deep calling to deep. What is it that's making you work? Why are you even bothering? What's going on inside of you? Let's find that out. Let's find out what is your deepest need for joy. What will bring you joy in your life? And let's use that because I think that's one of those untapped things that you were talking about, Rory. Recognizing that it's right for your work to give you joy. And if it doesn't give you joy, what on earth are you doing it for? So let's find out what is it that gives you joy and let's turn that into your most successful business idea. And then let's use some of Rory's tools to get you off the starting blocks, to get rid of the procrastination, to get rid of the jumble that's going on in your head, so that you can be still and quiet and take action on on reaching that joy, because that's where his gift is. So it's a brilliant partnership, and that sounds like big headed, but it's not. It's about recognizing what I can give, Rory recognizing what he can give, and then bringing it together to make a bigger thing, so that you get the message of the heart, the power that will push you forward, and the practical steps that you need day by day, so that you can reach your goals and change more lives, because that's what it's all about.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So yes, I can't wait to see you there. Come along. Let us know what you got from all of this in the comments. Any highlights, any thoughts, any questions, anything that you think and you declare and you write down, you or shares that insight with someone else. It's the ripple effect of insight, I like to call it. Um, let's meet. Let's talk joy, passion, purpose, attraction, client attraction. Let's talk physical and mental battery charging. Let's talk about inspired decision making. Let's talk about um, know, like, and trust, both directional, bi-directional, so that it's resonance, so that it's personality and resonance and qualifications, applications, it's imaginations, it's creations.
Got a song there or a poem.
Burst into song, yes. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you there.